Shadows of the Sleepless Night, a journey to tranquility. The town of Veradale nestled gently amidst rolling hills, bathed in the warm glow of a golden sunrise. Here, the world moved at a languid pace, as if time itself had paused to savor the tranquility that enveloped the quaint streets lined with cobblestones and century-old facades. Flower boxes beneath windows burst with vibrant blooms, while the gentle hum of crickets lingered in the air, a soothing lullaby as the town awoke to a new day. Detective Adrian Nightingale stepped out onto his porch, sipping a steaming cup of coffee as he surveyed the serene landscape. The morning mist swirled lazily over the fields, whispering secrets of the night that had just retired. For Adrian, Veradale had always been a refuge, a peaceful place where the rhythm of life mirrored the steady beating of a content heart. But beneath this veneer of calm lay stories untold, mysteries whispered by the moonlit nights. Evelyn Marsh, a woman of grace and quiet charm, had also been a beloved figure in Veradale. She embodied warmth and generosity, her laughter a melody that endeared her to all who knew her. Her gatherings were the stuff of legend, where soft classical music mingled with peals of laughter under the starlit sky. But today, the gentle morning held a sense of disquiet, as though the town itself sensed a storm approaching. The phone call came, ringing with urgency that shattered Adrian's moment of solitude. "Adrian, it's bad," came the voice of Officer Laura Bennett on the other end, her tone etched with concern. "Evelyn Marsh, something happened." Adrian's heart quickened, the tranquil facade of Veradale suddenly painted with shadows. "What's wrong?" he pressed, setting his coffee cup down as he listened intently. "We found her this morning," Laura replied, the words heavy with an unspoken weight. "It looks like an accident, but there are things that don't add up. You should come down here." As he absorbed the news, Adrian's mind sharpened, the weight of his role settling over him like a familiar mantle. Evelyn's presence had been a light in the community, and the thought of her gone cast a pall over his every sentiment. "I'm on my way," he murmured, stepping back inside his house to grab his coat, readying himself to face whatever lay ahead. He spared a last glance at the peaceful horizon, now tinged with a sense of foreboding. As he walked down the quiet streets toward the scene, he passed houses steeped in shadows and secrets, the town still draped in the remnants of last night's dreams. The usual gentle murmur of conversations was replaced by hushed whispers, as though Veradale itself was holding its breath, awaiting clarity amidst the confusion. Adrian arrived at Evelyn's elegant home, a place once vibrant with life, now burdened by an air of solemnity. The officers on the scene moved with a respectful hush, their expressions solemn. Instinctively, Adrian sought out clues, every detail a potential key to unlock the mystery of Evelyn's sudden departure. Stepping inside, the atmosphere shifted, the walls bearing silent witness to the events that had unfolded within. As he surveyed the room, He noticed the remnants of Evelyn's last gathering, glasses still half full, chairs askew, their usual order disrupted. Soft strains of classical music lingered in the air, as if holding on to a memory of the joy that once filled the space. Amongst the chaos, Adrian's gaze fell upon a fireplace mantel where a photograph of Evelyn captured her essence, her smile radiant, her eyes alight with mirth. This moment, frozen in time, tugged at Adrian's heart as he silently vowed to find the truth lying hidden in the shadows. Outside, the town of Veradale continued its gentle hum, unaware of the storm brewing beneath its tranquil surface. But Adrian knew, with the weight of Evelyn's legacy pressing upon him, that he wouldn't rest until he brought light to the shadows enveloping the sleepless night. With determination settling into place, Detective Adrian Nightingale began his journey to understand what truly happened to Evelyn Marsh. Seeking clarity amidst the soft echoes of a world seemingly at peace. As Adrian delved deeper into the remnants of the gathering, the specter of Evelyn's vibrant life surrounded him like a cloak, wrapping him in bittersweet memories. The scent of her favorite lavender candles lingered in the air, intertwining with the melancholy mood that weighed heavily upon his heart. It was a space filled with laughter, and now it echoed with silence, each corner a testament to the absence of joy. He stepped towards the dining table, where the last remnants of the evening's festivities still lay. A silk tablecloth adorned with a vase of fresh daisies, their petals wilting slightly, a shadow of what they had once been. Glasses, half full with wine, caught the light for a brief moment before settling back into their desolate state. Adrian's fingers grazed one of the glasses, and a shard of memory pierced through the laughter, the warmth, the shared stories that had undoubtedly filled this room. Adrian turned his attention to the side hallway, where he could see Laura Bennett speaking with two uniformed officers. He made his way over, his resolve tightening further. "What do we know?" he asked, his voice low yet charged with urgency. Laura turned to him, her eyes reflecting mixed emotions. "We found her in the garden later this morning. The initial assessment points to a fall, but there are inconsistencies that don't sit right." "Such as?" Adrian prompted, realizing that the shadows of doubt were already gathering. "There are no signs that suggest she fell from the house, and the ground near her body appeared undisturbed. Additionally, her phone is missing. No calls or messages after midnight," Laura explained, her brow furrowed in thought. "Missing?" Adrian echoed, the implication sending a shiver down his spine. "Do we know who she was with last night?" "The last of her guests left around 11, but her closest friends all confirm they hadn't heard from her afterward." "There was only silence," Laura replied, frustration creeping into her tone. Adrian's mind raced with possibilities. Evelyn's vibrant energy must have drawn others around her. But now he was acutely aware of how quickly that warmth could turn cold. "I want to see the garden," he said, turning sharply toward the door leading outside. They stepped into the back of the house, where a wrought iron gate opened onto a lush garden, now marred by tragedy. As they walked through the dew-kissed grass, Adrian felt the weight of the world pressing down around him. He scanned the landscape meticulously, taking in every detail: the flower beds arranged with care, a stone path winding through the foliage, all leading back to a charming gazebo that stood proudly, but now bore the marks of sorrow. In the distance, a few clusters of guests lingered, some still coming to terms with the news, while others whispered earnestly, casting watchful glances back at the house. The scene felt hauntingly alive, with the whispers of grief mingling with the fresh scent of blooming roses, a poignant reminder of the beauty that had been overshadowed by the tragedy. As they approached the area where Evelyn had been found, Adrian noticed a faint scuff mark on the nearby stones, a trace of disturbance against the otherwise serene backdrop. He crouched down to inspect, leaning closer. "What's this?" he murmured, brushing the dust away with his fingertips. Laura knelt beside him, her brow furrowing in concentration. "It looks like a heel mark," she suggested, squinting at the faint outline. "But how did she get here?" "That's what we need to find out," Adrian replied, a surge of determination fueling his next steps. He needed to trace Evelyn's movements, to unearth the details hidden below the surface. Every disparity was a potential lead, and every tale spun by the people of Veridale could shape their understanding of what had transpired. "Let's talk to her friends. Maybe they saw or heard something that will reveal more," Adrian suggested, rising to his feet, the shadows around him solidifying as he prepared to unravel the unseen forces surrounding Evelyn's life. As they moved back toward the house, Adrian's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. In the gentle light of morning, as the world remained blissfully unaware of the storm within, he felt a weight on his soul, knowing that every moment mattered in the pursuit of clarity. The whispers of Veridale had begun. He could sense them curling around him, guiding him toward the heart of Evelyn's story, the truth waiting just beyond the horizon, veiled in shadows, yet beckoning to be uncovered. As they re-entered the house, Adrian steeled himself for the conversations ahead. He knew that Evelyn's friends were essential pieces of this puzzle, their recollections, perhaps, holding glimpses of the truth that had eluded him thus far. Each moment spent within this home told a story of joy, and yet the heavy pall of grief shrouded it now, thickening the air with unshed tears. Adrian and Laura moved through the hall, past the living room where lingering echoes of laughter seemed to twist in the air, each memory a reminder of the beauty that had once flourished here. The muted conversation of guests spilled from the kitchen, where a group had gathered, their faces strained and sorrowful. Adrian approached the cluster, where he recognized Gina, Evelyn's closest friend, her eyes glazed with shock. She clutched her hands tightly, trembling slightly as she turned toward him. "Detective Nightingale," she greeted, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "We still can't believe it. Evelyn, she was just here, hosting us. How could this happen? I know it's difficult, Gina, but I need your help. Can you tell me about last night? Who was here? Did anything seem unusual?" Adrian asked gently, hopping to coax her into a clearer recollection. She nodded slowly, struggling to piece the memories together. "It was like any other gathering," she began, her gaze drifting as if searching for fragments of the past. Evelyn was radiant, as always. There were a few of us, Chad, Laura, and some others. But something felt off when Chad arrived. He seemed agitated. Agitated how? Adrian prompted, keen to understand the dynamics at play. Gina looked at him, her brow knitted in concern. He and Evelyn had been in a bit of a tiff lately. There was talk about investments. Evelyn was stressed about money and those dealings. I remember Chad's voice growing raised. I thought they would settle it outside. Adrian's heart sank. "Do you know what they were arguing about specifically?" It was vague, but I felt the tension. Evelyn mentioned wanting to withdraw from whatever it was they were involved in. Gina continued. Chad wasn't keen on that. It felt almost desperate. He wanted to keep her in the fold, but she was ready to let it go. Laura stepped in, her voice steady, but laced with urgency. "Did you see Evelyn after that? At any time, did she seem fearful or anxious?" Gina paused to consider. "No, not until later in the night. I overheard her talking to Laura about it, saying she felt like someone was watching her." "Someone?" Adrian's pulse quickened at the revelation. "Did she say who it was?" "No," Gina replied, biting her lip as memories washed over her. "She didn't name anyone, but I could tell something wasn't right. It was like she sensed danger lurking just beyond the door." The weight of Gina's words enveloped Adrian like a fog, each indication pointing towards unseen forces that had impacted Evelyn's life. "Did anyone else leave early? Did you notice if she spoke to anyone after the argument with Chad?" "No, everyone left around 11. Evelyn insisted we stay longer, but Gina's voice trailed off, the realization dawning on her. But I think she was trying to mask her feelings beneath that charm. She wanted us to enjoy the evening, but I could tell there was something heavy on her heart." "And then you heard nothing?" Adrian pressed, knowing every detail could matter. "Yes," Gina said, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "We all went home, and that was our last memory of her. I didn't think, God, I didn't think something like this could happen." Adrian took a deep breath, the urgency of the situation churning within him. "Gina, if there are any other details you remember, anything at all, please let me know. This could help us find out what really happened." As the weight of Evelyn's sudden absence settled within the room, Adrian could feel it pressing on the shoulders of everyone present. They all shared a bond, a shared grief knitting them tightly together within the fabric of their sorrow. Yet he feared that the threads of despair were also entwined with danger. Gina nodded, her expression a mixture of anguish and resolve. "I'll do anything to help," she promised, wiping her tears away. "She deserves justice." Adrian met her gaze, acknowledging the determination that sparked within them both. "That's what we're going to find, justice for Evelyn. I want to talk to Chad next. If he was involved, he might hold the answers we need." As he moved away from the group, arranging his thoughts, he sensed the urgency of time ticking tighter around them, binding their fates to the shadows that held Evelyn in a relentless clasp. With each step toward Chad's direction, the whispers of the investigation grew louder, a call to action, striving to light the path obscured by grief. He stepped back into the soft embrace of morning as they exited the house, the sun beginning to rise higher, and cast its golden light through the garden, slowly illuminating the shadows that had danced protectively around Evelyn. A strange juxtaposition against their somber mission. Yet, amidst the blooming life surrounding him, Adrian felt a flicker of hope return. He pushed aside the lingering doubts and resolved himself to confront the unspoken truths, determined to illuminate the darkness concealing Evelyn's fate before the whispers faded into silence. Stepping into the brightened garden, Adrian felt the vibrant colors of the flowers contrasting sharply with the heaviness in his heart. Each petal, bathed in sunlight, seemed to radiate life, while the chilling reality of Evelyn's absence loomed ever larger. He inhaled deeply, trying to clear his mind as he turned from the invigorating landscape, and set his sights on seeking out Chad. "Where can I find Chad?" Adrian inquired, glancing over his shoulder at Laura, whose brow was still furrowed in thought as she stared at the ground, the remnants of Evelyn's last night weighing heavily on her. Chad was headed to his apartment outside of town. He usually escapes thereafter. "Well, after something like this," Laura mumbled, her voice tinged with apprehension. "I can never tell if he's seeking solace or hiding from the consequences." "Then let's move. We'll need to catch him before he makes any excuses or runs off," Adrian replied, feeling the urgency pulse within him. He briefly glanced back at the gathering still caught in their sorrows before pushing through the wrought iron gate and across the threshold of Evelyn's world, determined to uncover the truth hidden beyond the veil of grief. The drive to Chad's place was quick, the lush countryside sprawling around them like a comforting quilt. Still, Adrian couldn't help but feel the weight of Evelyn's memory pressing down, urging him to unveil the darkness lying at the heart of this tragedy. As they approached Chad's modest apartment, he noted the air had grown heavy with foreboding, the atmosphere charged with unanswered questions. "Stay alert," Adrian cautioned Laura as they parked in front of the building, an unassuming structure that belied the drama that might unfold within. Together they entered the building, the faded hallway stretching before them like an ominous passage to confronting the truth. Each step echoed, their shoes against the scuffed tiles, creating a rhythm that felt like a countdown to inevitability. Adrian knocked firmly on Chad's door, the sound reverberating through the corridor. "Chad," he called out, straining to hear any signs of life from within. "We need to talk." The seconds felt like hours, as Adrian mentally prepared himself for whatever Chad's reaction would be. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing Chad's disheveled appearance, a stark contrast to the poised charm Evelyn had always glimmered. His eyes, once sharp, now showed a clouded mixture of panic and defiance. "Detective Nightingale?" Chad asked, his tone rising in pitch, betraying his nervousness. "What are you doing here?" "We need answers," Adrian responded firmly, stepping into the apartment, motioning for Laura to follow. As he crossed the threshold, he couldn't help but note the remnants of last night lingering in the air, the space suffused with the discordant energy of a recent confrontation. "About Evelyn?" Chad's voice wavered, a thread of uncertainty knitting through his bravado as he attempted to maintain a nonchalant facade. "Yes, Evelyn," Adrian pressed, his gaze locking onto Chad's. "We know you two had a heated discussion last night. What happened? Why does it feel like there's more to this story?" Chad stiffened slightly, his facade beginning to crumble. I didn't mean for things to go that far," he stammered, his voice breaking a little. "We were just trying to work things out." "Work things out," Laura interjected, unable to hide her incredulity. "That's not what Gina told us. She mentioned arguments and tension, something about her wanting to pull back." "What were you pressuring her to do?" "Leave it alone." Chad snapped suddenly, anger flaring briefly before he caught himself, taking a step back and running a hand through his hair as if trying to smoothen his thoughts. "You don't understand. I was just trying to help her. Help her by forcing her to stay in something she didn't want." Adrian probed, sensing that anger was just a defense, masking deeper insecurities. "Was that your idea of help? Keeping her in a stressful situation?" Chad hesitated, the turmoil behind his eyes betraying his desperation. "She wouldn't listen to reason. I had her interests at heart. These investments were promising, but she was too proud to see it." Adrian stepped closer, his voice calm but unwavering. "But what about last night? Did you threaten her? Did you see her after the argument?" Chad clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "I left. I got fed up after. I didn't want to argue anymore. I thought she'd be all right." "Thought she'd be all right," Adrian pressed, the anger now bubbling beneath his calm exterior. "She's dead, Chad. How can you stand there and say that?" The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. Chad's stoic exterior shattered, revealing a glimpse of regret and guilt swirling beneath. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he blurted out, vulnerability breaking through. "I loved her. I thought if I just pressed a bit harder, she'd see the potential. I didn't want anything to happen to her." "Chad," Laura interrupted, her voice steady but raw. "What was going on behind the scenes? There's something more to this, isn't there? Someone else involved." The air hung thick with anticipation, Adrian waiting for Chad's response, and for the shadows of Evelyn's fate to unfurl before them. As the silence enveloped them, the pieces of the story remained hidden. Yet Adrian sensed the truth was teetering on the edge, longing for release. Chad's breaths came in harsh gasps, his limbs trembling slightly as the enormity of the situation pressed down upon him. The shadows cast by the late afternoon sun danced across his face, accentuating the fear and uncertainty lurking in his eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen," he finally whispered, the confession bursting forth like a dam breaking under strain. Adrian leaned in closer, urgency lacing his voice. "Then help us understand, Chad. If you loved her, tell us the whole truth. Who else was involved? You mentioned investments. Did someone threaten you? Did Evelyn ever mention feeling in danger?" Chad's features contorted into a mix of anguish and frustration. "It's complicated," he stammered. "There's more than just the money. There was someone else, someone who came into the picture. Malcolm. He's the one who pulled the strings. I tried to keep him out of it, but—" "Malcolm," Laura interjected, her voice rising. "What do you mean? How was he involved?" Chad swallowed hard, the tension in the room thick enough to slice. "He was lurking in the background, always. Evelyn got involved with some of his investments through me, serious ones that weren't exactly above board. When she tried to pull out, Malcolm didn't take it well. He told me to make sure she stayed compliant." Adrian dropped his gaze, the pieces of the puzzle sliding into place as he processed Chad's words. The dark figure of Malcolm materialized in his mind, a shadowy threat looming over Evelyn's life, one that could very well have led her to her untimely demise. "What happened after you left her that night?" he asked, his voice steady. Chad looked away, anguish clouding his eyes as his voice quivered. "I went home. I thought she would call. I thought that after a cool-off, things would settle and we could work together to get her out of this." "And did she?" Adrian pressed, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on him. "Did she ever call you? Did she have any other means to reach out? Any messages or something that indicated trouble?" Chad's expression grew even more frantic, his mind racing. "No, at least not that I know of. I was just starting to put things together when I heard," his voice cracked, choking on the reality of Evelyn's fate. "I heard she was found. You don't think—" "Chad," Laura said softly, carefully diverting his spiraling thoughts. "We need to find Malcolm. We need to know if he's a threat. Where can we find him?" "His usual haunts are the old docks," Chad replied, his voice shaking. "He likes to meet there, hidden out of sight. He has connections with some rough people. If he thought Evelyn was going to expose him—" Adrian's heart raced, the urgency of the situation igniting a fire within him. "Then we need to move. We might not have much time before he slips away." As they turned to leave, Chad reached out, desperation etched across his face. "Please be careful. I never wanted this to happen. I cared about her, even if I messed up. Adrian nodded curtly, the weight of what he was about to face heavy on his shoulders. We'll find the truth, Chad, for Evelyn. Outside, the sun was sinking low in the sky, casting long shadows as the day began to cycle into twilight. The serenity that once embraced Veradale now felt fraught with tension. The once comforting landscape swirling with an undercurrent of danger as they made their way back to the car. "Do you think Chad telling the truth?" Laura asked softly, her tone a mixture of skepticism and concern. "I think he believes he was trying to help, but that doesn't absolve him." "We still need to find Malcolm," Adrian replied, determination surging through him. "He could be our key to understanding not just Evelyn's death, but the web of deceit that ensnared her in the first place." They climbed into the car, the hum of the engine echoing the pounding of Adrian's heart as they sped toward the docks. The rhythmic swells of the water mirrored his drive, the pressing need to uncover the truth swelling inside him with every passing moment. Shadows loomed by the water's edge as he remembered the warmth of Evelyn's laughter, now overshadowed by the chilling unknown that awaited them. The docks emerged ahead, hidden beneath the dimming light, a foreboding landscape cloaked in intrigue and danger. Adrian's heart thudded as he surveyed the area, the air thick with the scent of salt and secrets waiting to be unveiled. Whatever lay ahead would test not just their resolve, but their quest for justice in a tale where light and darkness danced a precarious tango. As they pulled up to the edge of the docks, Adrian turned to Laura, their eyes meeting in a silent pact. "This is it. We uncover the truth, no matter what it takes." Resolute, they stepped onto the dock, the dim light preceding them flickering like a hesitant heartbeat. Shadows merged with the sounds of the water lapping at the boards, a blend of hope and uncertainty as they ventured deeper into the heart of the mystery. The docks stretched out before them, wooden planks creaking softly underfoot as the evening tide rolled in, whispering secrets that lingered just beyond the edge of their understanding. Adrian could feel the tension coiling between him and Laura, each step propelling them closer to the heart of the enigma surrounding Evelyn's tragic fate. Adrian led the way, his instincts sharp and alert, scanning every shadow for signs of life. The dying light of the day cast elongated silhouettes across the water, a surreal blend of beauty and trepidation. The world around them was still, save for the occasional distant call of a seagull or the low murmur of the waves, a haunting melody that seemed to echo the unresolved turmoil of the town. "Stay close," Adrian instructed, as they approached a stretch where the light flickered weakly from an overhanging street lamp, illuminating a few scattered crates and barrels. "If Malcolm is here, he'll likely be cautious, especially after everything that's happened." Laura nodded, her eyes darting around, half watching for any sign of movement. "Do we know what he looks like?" "Chad didn't exactly give us a description," she whispered, her voice barely above the hush of the wind. "Not much to go on," Adrian said, gritting his teeth. "But we know he's connected to the kind of people we wouldn't want to run into. We need to be prepared for anything." As they approached the far end of the dock, the sound of low voices drifted to them, a muffled conversation hidden beneath the clamor of the waves. Adrian and Laura exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. This could be the lead they desperately needed. They crept closer, which allowed them to draw nearer to a shadowed area where scraps of light barely brushed the ground. There, silhouetted against the backdrop of the murky water, stood two figures. Adrian strained to catch snippets of their words, heart pounding in his chest. She was asking too many questions, one voice growled, a deep timbre laced with annoyance. "I told you to keep her quiet." The other figure, thin and jittery, muttered something inaudible. But then Adrian heard a name that sent chills down his spine. Evelyn. Yeah, and now it's too late. If she'd just listened, the larger figure hissed, the weight of an unseen menace hanging in the air. Adrian could feel Laura stiffen beside him, her hand clenching into a fist. Adrian exchanged a glance with Laura, their understanding crystal clear. They couldn't let this opportunity slip away. He took a slow breath, his mind racing through possibilities as he prepared to confront them. "We need to move now," he whispered, adrenaline surging through him. They crept closer, but the wind caught their voices, erasing any chance of unnoticed approach. Just as Adrian was about to call out to the figures, the larger man turned sharply, his face hardened by shadows. "Who's there?" he called out, the authority in his voice slicing through the quiet. Caught between the demons of confrontation and the pursuit of truth, Adrian stepped into the light, grounding himself in resolve. "I'm Detective Adrian Nightingale. I need to ask you a few questions about Evelyn Marsh." The tension in the air crackled, thickening like a storm cloud. The first figure, bulky and intimidating, gritted his teeth, sizing up Adrian with a predatory gaze. "You shouldn't be poking around in places you don't belong, Detective." Laura stepped beside Adrian, her voice trembling slightly yet fierce. "We know what happened. You were involved in the investments with Evelyn. Are you the one who stalked her? Who threatened her?" "Careful, sweetheart," the larger man sneered, an unsettling grin creeping upon his unshaven face. "You don't want to find out what happens to people who get too curious." Adrian felt the heat of anger boiling within him, but maintained his calm. "If you have nothing to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem discussing her death." In a swift motion, the tension snapped. The smaller figure darted toward the edge of the dock, eyes wide with panic, presumably to escape. The larger man reacted immediately, lunging forward to grab him. "Get back here." Adrian acted on instinct, sprinting forward in pursuit, with Laura close behind. "You're not getting away," he shouted, fierce determination driving him. Just as they neared, the small figure stumbled, losing his footing on the boards. Adrian lunged, grabbing the man by the arm as he steadied himself. "What do you know about Evelyn? Talk." The skittish man's eyes widened in fear, glancing back at his companion, whose demeanor twisted with rage. I didn't mean to hurt her. I swear," he stammered. "Then who did?" Adrian pressed, gripping the man's shoulder tightly. "Malcolm was behind it all," he whimpered, the words trapping Adrian like a vice. "He said she had to be silenced. She was a liability. I didn't want to be part of it." The larger man snarled and lunged at them, eyes blazing with fury. "Shut your mouth." He shoved Adrian aside in an escalating rush, and chaos erupted. With reflexes honed from years of service, Adrian quickly assessed the situation. He grappled with the larger figure, adrenaline coursing through him, while Laura tried to intervene. Heavy breaths filled the air, mingling with the sounds of their struggle as they fought for control of the situation. In the melee, the true nature of Evelyn's tragedy unfolded before Adrian. The fear, the urgency, the heart of a community battling against shadows that refused to be vanquished. As he wrestled with the criminal element threatening to choke their investigation, he understood that the fight didn't just lie within this dock. There were deeper currents of complicity and silence stretching far beyond Fairdale. "Help someone," the thin figure yelled, panic lacing his voice, intensifying the chaos surrounding them. In that moment, Adrian felt a spark ignite his resolve as he sought to bring light to the darkness surrounding Evelyn's last days. It was time to end the cycle of fear, to honor her legacy, and to finally extract the truth that had haunted them for far too long. In the chaos, Adrian focused on the larger man, sensing that this confrontation held the key to unraveling the web of deceit surrounding Evelyn's tragic fate. "We can do this the hard way or the easy way," Adrian growled, his voice low and steady as he wrestled the man back, trying to gain a strategic upper hand. Laura acted swiftly, grabbing her phone amid the commotion. "I'm calling for backup," she yelled, her voice resolute. In a world where shadows concealed so much, they needed all the support they could muster. The larger man halted momentarily, calculating the odds, while Adrian seized the chance to wrestle him down toward the dock's edge. "You need to tell us everything you know about Malcolm, about Evelyn, or this won't end well for you." The man's eyes darkened, brewing defiance, but Adrian's grip remained unyielding. "She was getting too clever," he spat, his breath ragged with rage. "Malcolm warned her to back off, but she kept digging. She had to be stopped, and I was just the muscle to make it so. You think that you'll just get away with this?" Adrian pushed, knowing that the more they spoke, the more the truth would bleed into the light. Suddenly, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Backup was on its way, and the tense atmosphere shifted palpably, urgency crashing over them like the waves crashing onto the dock. The large man's defiance faltered. "You don't know what you're dealing with. Malcolm has eyes everywhere, he blustered, beginning to back away. You're just a cop chasing phantoms. Adrian tightened his grip, refusing to let him escape. Not phantoms, just the truth that's been hidden far too long. Evelyn deserves justice, and we're not stopping until we uncover every piece of this puzzle. The escalating intensity of the confrontation lingered as Laura kept a watchful eye, positioning herself strategically. With the threat of the approaching police becoming palpable, Adrian harnessed the adrenaline coursing through him. He knew they needed to press harder, to flush Malcolm out in this critical moment. The larger man's voice shook with desperation as he saw the outlines of police cars approaching. I won't talk. You think they can protect you? Malcolm, he's a monster. I'm just trying to survive. That's not going to save you from what you've done, Adrian shot back. You had a choice, just like Evelyn did. She chose to stand up against you. Where is Malcolm? What's his plan? With a flash of terror, the man's bravado crumbled. I don't know where he is. He has connections everywhere, but I know he's watching. He's always watching. Just as Adrian was about to press further, the night erupted with the arrival of police officers, their presence filling the vacated space with authority. Detective Nightingale, one called out, quickly assessing the chaos. Arrest this man. He's involved in Evelyn Marsh's murder. Adrian barked, pointing to the larger figure, who appeared increasingly frantic under the weight of their scrutiny. The police surrounded them, swiftly incapacitating the man and pulling him away, handcuffs clicking ominously as he was led off. Adrian exhaled, the rush of adrenaline slowly ebbing from his system as he reassessed the remaining figure, who, in the shadows of the chaos, stood trembling. Now, what about you? Adrian demanded, stepping closer to the jittery man. We can't help you unless you help us. Realizing the stakes, the man gulped hard. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was scared. I was just following orders. Orders from Malcolm. Adrian pressed, hunger for truth igniting within him once more. Yes, the man whimpered, his voice quavering. When Evelyn tried to back out, he got furious. He said there would be consequences. I never wanted things to go this far. Then tell us what you know, Laura interjected, her voice calming yet demanding, like an anchor pulling the man back from the edge of panic. Where can we find him? Bravely now, he nodded. He hangs out at an old warehouse on the edge of town. If you hurry, you might be able to catch him before he slips away again. You have to warn everyone. He's dangerous. He has people working for him. Adrian weighed the urgency in the man's every word, the sudden clarity that unfolded before him. Thank you, he nodded decisively before turning towards Laura. We need to move now. As they sped away from the docks, the night curled protectively around them, but Adrian felt emboldened by the new information. The shadows were closing in, yet the truth beckoned, a fragile light shimmering just beyond the darkness. With hearts pounding in tandem, They raced through the winding streets of Veradale, pushing aside the weight of the past as they charged towards the future, a future that now held the hope of revealing the injustices Evelyn had faced and bringing her story into the light. Once we find Malcolm, we can put an end to this, Adrian said, gripping the steering wheel as he navigated through the night. For Evelyn, their minds set ablaze with purpose, he and Laura barreled onward, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. They were determined to reclaim the narrative lost in shadows, to shine the light of truth on a tale that had been twisted into despair. With Evelyn's spirit guiding them, they would confront the unseen forces that sought to conceal her story forever, leading them ultimately toward a moment of reckoning and clarity. As they approached the warehouse, the reality of what lay ahead dawned upon Adrian, a moment where all would converge, where shadows would either succumb to light or darkness would reign triumphant. And as they stepped forth into the unknown, their hearts beat as one, bound by purpose and the promise of peace, the resolute desire to honor a life that had once woven joy into the fabric of Veradale.